the greatest income inequality in 80 years, a shrinking middle class, and what he sees as a new American oligarchy. The economic system that helped make America so strong is, says Robert Reich, now failing. The former U.S. Labor Secretary chronicles his deep concerns about how the economy is not working for most people in a new book. It's called Saving Capitalism, for the many, not the few. And Robert Reich joins us now here in studio. It's great to have you on our program again.
Thank you, Steve.
Although nice to meet you for the first time. We had you on satellite last time, so
yes,
I don't...
and it's not the same thing.
It sure is not.
You get the kind of personal interaction.
It's much better having you here. Yeah. I want to start by reading an excerpt for the book, and then we'll come back and chat. Here we go. Sheldon, bring this up if you would. For 3 decades after World War II, America created the largest middle class the world had ever seen. During those years, the earnings of the typical American worker doubled, just as the size of the American economy doubled. Over the last 30 years, by contrast, the size of the economy doubled again, but the earnings of the typical American went nowhere. We're going to unpack all of that, but let's just start with a simple, how come?
Basically because the rules of the political economy, the way America, the United States, organized itself changed to help and to further the advancement of those at the top who got all the economic gains, and to make it harder for the average person to get by.
How did they get away with that?
Very subtly. It wasn't a plot. I'm not a conspiratorialist, but I do think that incrementally, because those at the top, as they gain more wealth, they gain more political power. As they gain more political power, they gain more ability to entrench and enlarge their wealth politically. It was kind of a and has been a self-perpetuating phenomenon, a vicious cycle that I think is ultimately hurting the economy, certainly hurting society.
No less than Jimmy Carter said, we, meaning you, have now become an oligarchy instead of a democracy. Does that overstate it?
Well, it overstates it only slightly. That is, there's no question that the biggest corporations, the CEOs, the top executives, Wall Street, the biggest Wall Street banks, and a handful of billionaires now control much of American politics and control much of what's done in Washington and in state capitals. You call that an oligarchy? Well, it does look and smell and taste an awful lot like an oligarchy. Americans as a whole have grown so cynical and negative about politics that that itself is a kind of a vicious cycle, because as Americans withdraw from politics, they don't vote, they don't participate, they clear the way for the moneyed interests to take over.
Can you draw a straight line between that cynicism, that disgust, and the rise of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, for example?
I think they are related. The Tea Party movement on the right and the brief Occupy movement on the left both grew out of the 2008 bailout of Wall Street, which caused many people to say, wait a minute, this game is fixed, crony capitalism. Donald Trump comes out of the right, that Tea Party expression of revulsion against crony capitalism. Bernie Sanders comes out of the left, which is, again, an Occupy reformist tradition. I don't know which is going to triumph, if either of them is going to triumph, but undoubtedly the biggest news in American politics today is an anti-establishment populism.
And they too represent it as good as anybody right now, don't they?
They certainly do. They're very different. Mm-hmm. I don't want to, it's hard even to put the two in the same sentence, but they do represent something that is a phenomenon that can't be ignored.
I want to pick up, there's a moment in the book, and again in a documentary that was made about you, which was terrific, which I watched this past summer. There's a moment where there's I guess he's a factory worker, and he says, I don't have any problem with corporate executives making so much more than I do, because after all, they've got the education, they've got the management skills, and I'm just a worker, and you know, I've only got high school, and therefore they're entitled to make more. That's out there, isn't it? That view is out there.
I think it is out there. I was there. I talked to that factory worker. I wanted to shake him and say, don't you remember labor unions? Don't you remember how the economy of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s worked for everybody? Why are you taking this responsibility on yourself?
Well, he's bought into the market.
Demeaning yourself. Why have you bought into this ideology that the market forces are somehow you know, beyond politics, beyond anybody's control? Why do you demean your own capacity in the way you are. I mean, he said, I don't have the brains. Well, this is not about brains. It's about political power. It's not even about education. It's about who controls the organization of the economy.
Where or how did it somehow become magical, particularly in the United States, but throughout the Western world, that the free market is something that needs to be worshiped, not regulated, allowed to do its thing, and it somehow is the be-all and end-all of the way we ought to organize ourselves?
It's even worse, Steve. It's not so much that people idolize, or conservatives mostly idolize the free market. It's that they fail to understand and acknowledge that you cannot have a market without government. Now, that is the basic decisions about the building blocks. I mean, property, contract, liability, how are you going to deal with bankruptcy? These are all made by judges, by administrative officers of agencies, by politicians. They're constantly revised, constantly amended. And if you don't take account of the fact that politics and the economy are inextricably related, then you are missing a big part of the story.
Can we go through some of those building blocks, like property rights, for example? Give us a handy-dandy example of how property rights have been skewed in favor of the few versus the needs of the many.
Well, you only have to look at intellectual property, patents, copyrights. I mean, what's happened in pharmaceuticals and in big tech and in others that rely on patents is that they've managed to rig the system so that instead of a 20-year patent period, they get patents extended and extended and extended. Patents and trademarks and copyrights become barriers to entry against small upstart businesses. Americans end up paying much more than they otherwise would, and you get a redistribution upward. In fact, I call it a pre-distribution because it's actually inside the market nobody knows about. Americans don't know they're paying more for pharmaceuticals than any other citizen of any other country. Americans don't know that, for example, they have the worst internet service and the most expensive internet service of any citizens of any advanced country. I mean, this is all buried inside kind of a property system that nobody talks about.
I noticed, though, the other day, your friend Hillary Clinton, whom you've known for how many years now?
Well, since she was 19, I think I was 20.
Okay, so it's a while. It's a while. I noticed the other day she said that Americans ought to have the right to buy drugs from Canada because they're cheaper. You're okay with that?
I certainly, not only am I okay with it, but you see the power of, this goes back to the power of big corporations, big industries, big pharma. Has got laws enacted that says no, that say no, you can't buy from Canada. Also, the federal government cannot use its bargaining leverage, and it has a lot of bargaining leverage through Medicare to get better deals with regard to pharmaceuticals. Also, pharmaceutical proprietary drug makers have the authority and the legal basis for saying to generic manufacturers, no, we're going to pay you off so you don't come up with a generic alternative. No other country allows its pharmaceutical industry to behave this way.
Actually, we do too, I hate to tell you.
Well, no other country outside North America.
Yeah, all of the provincial governments buy all the drugs that go on the formularies in Canada, and certainly numerous people for years have been saying we ought to let the federal government have a hand in that. One national buyer that could presumably purchase things at a smaller price, but it doesn't happen here either.
Well, it doesn't happen here, and this is an important point for Canada, and I want to be very careful not to be presumptuous, but many of the problems we see in the United States are in Canada as well. They're not as far along. Canada, blessedly for Canada, doesn't face quite the degree of inequality and quite the degree of stagnant wages and political corruption, in quotes, that the United States faces. But Canada is trending in the same direction. So many of the issues I bring up in the book should serve, I hope, as a warning to Canadians.
There is a belief, though, a deeply held belief, that you make what the market says you're worth. And if the market says that Alex Rodriguez is worth $26 million a year to play for the New York Yankees, then okay, then that's what he gets paid. Why is that wrong?
Well, it's in the case of Alex Rodriguez, it may be right, but the assumption that you are paid what you are worth, quote unquote, in the market, is not just a tautology. That is, obviously you're paid what you're worth in the market because You wouldn't be paid anything else, given how the market is organized. But there's a moral justification that creeps in. That is, you're not worth any more than that. Or Alex Rodriguez is worth, in a moral sense, all of that money. Or a hedge fund manager on Wall Street is worth $1 billion a year, in a moral sense. And that's the problem. If you accept my premise, which I think actually is true, that the market is a human creation, it is not in a state of nature, then there's no reason to assume that what you're paid in the market is morally justifiable unless you think that the market itself is working in a morally justifiable way.
Well, when you were a university student, I gather corporate executives, on average, made about 20 times what the average industrial worker owned. And now, I read in your book, it's up to 300 times. Have companies gotten that much more profitable? Have executives gotten that much more intelligent and brought that much more valuable to companies, in which case maybe they're worth 300 times instead of 20 times what the average worker makes?
Well, the irony, Steve, is actually, according to many studies, and I have some of them in the book, the more an executive is paid, the worse the company does. There's an inverse relationship between executive pay and company performance. There is no way that CEOs of big companies are now worth 300 times what the average worker is earning, whereas those executives were earning 20 times the average worker 5 decades ago. There is just no limit to executive pay because executives have rigged the system. They are paid by their own management committees that are deciding on their pay, and everybody wants their own executive to be in the top half of all executive pay, and that means inevitably, invariably, the pay gets ratcheted up regardless of executive performance.
You refer to in the book a bill that was making its way through the California Assembly, which I gather would reduce the level of corporate tax paid by a company if the ratio between what the executive made and the average worker made was lessened. Mm-hmm. Where's that at nowadays?
Well, there are rumors that California is going to take it up again. The California business community and its related allies were very much against it. I think it's a step in the right direction. What you want to do is create incentives upon a company that move in the opposite direction from the way the incentives have been working to date. Not to provide greater and greater rewards to people at the top and push wages down for everybody else, but actually to limit executive compensation and spread the benefits of that productivity of that company. That's the way it used to be in the 1950s and 60s when we had strong labor unions. We don't have strong labor unions. What other incentives can we use?
Is that an inappropriate incentive into the glories and magic of the free market?
Well, if you think that there is some glorious magicality that attends to the free market, it would be an intrusion. But if you accept my premise that the market is a human creation and it is created by politicians and judges and administrative agencies who are influenced by very wealthy people, big corporations and so forth, then what you have to have ultimately is a countervailing power to get some balance into the system.
There's a fellow that you quote in the book, the Harvard economist Gregory Mankiw, who asks what seems like a reasonable question. How do we help people at the bottom rather than thwart people at the top? Is that a fair question to ask?
It's a fair question on one level. Obviously, if you're concerned about poverty, you really do want to do a variety of things that help people at the bottom. It's an unfair question, though, if you assume that what happens to people at the top doesn't affect the middle class. That is, the middle class in the United States is being squeezed as more and more income and wealth goes to the top. And if the middle class is squeezed, politically, there's no way that you're going to get a majority in favor of helping the bottom, because a squeezed middle class is not going to be generous. There's not going to be that many opportunities of ladders of opportunity for the poor into the middle class if you have few slots in the middle class to occupy. So from a larger perspective, looking at the political economy as a whole, the Mankiw position that you ought to just look at the poor just is ludicrous.
So help me understand this politically then. You're a former Democrat. Well, you might still be a Democrat. I don't know. Are you? You still a member of the Democratic Party?
Well, that's my business, Steve. Okay. I'm in my personal political predilections, but I am a Democrat, yes.
Okay, okay. Well, let's also say you were Labor Secretary for President Bill Clinton.
So. I was, but my first job in the government was under the Ford administration.
Oh.
And I worked for Robert Bork. Do you remember Robert Bork?
I sure do.
Well, see, I...
Denied a position on the Supreme Court.
Yes, I have just kind of been a centrist all my life. The problem is that the playing field keeps on moving to the right.
It keeps moving on you, I see. Well, the question I was going to get to was, I presume you would say that the Democratic Party has the values and the aims of the middle class more properly aligned than the Republican Party, and yet there are great swaths of your country, look at the whole South, for example, where middle class and poor people vote Republican. Why does that happen?
A very good question. I think a lot of it is because the Republican Party has succeeded in dividing people by race, by ethnicity, by religion, by a variety of divisional tactics that essentially distract people from their economic self-interest. There is no other reason why, consistently, many working class and poor people do vote Republican because they're just riled up against them, and those them being whoever the scapegoats of the moment are. It's very important that Democrats, but I'll say this more generally, it's not about Democrats versus Republicans solely, it's very important in the United States, as in Canada, that we understand we are all in this together, that the only way we create an economy, a society, and a democracy that works for everyone is if we put aside these crazy, partisan kinds of antics, and we get on with the real hard work of or reorganizing the economy and society so that everybody has a potential for benefiting, that we make equal opportunity a reality.
And yet, Donald Trump has released his tax plan. After many weeks of saying it would be coming, it is finally out. And he said the hedge fund guys aren't going to like what I've got to propose. And he's offering them the biggest tax break you can imagine, and the middle class are getting a very small tax break. And yet, how many middle class people and lower middle class people are supporting Donald Trump?
Well, here you get into a very interesting, sort of almost sociological issue, and that is when people are very stressed economically, they worry about their futures, they worry that their children are not going to do as well as they may opt, historically, now I'm not saying anything about Donald Trump specifically, but they may opt, instead of for fundamental reform, they may opt for a strongman, an authoritarian character. This has happened before in history. They're not worried about the details. They're not worried about whether the math is right. Just give me somebody who's strong enough and tough enough and says the right things and has enough charisma and also blames immigrants and blames some other minorities, and I'll vote for that person.
And that's working right now.
Unfortunately, it seems to be working among some. But I have, and you might call me a cockeyed optimist, I have great faith in the American political system ultimately. Now, I've been in it, I've been around it, I've written about it. I'm also a student of history. I mean, I know what happened in the Gilded Age of the 1880s, 1890s with the robber barons, and then the public upsurge of disgust and revolt against that, leading to the Progressive Era, 1901 to 1916, which was the most reformist period we had up to that point.
Let me actually follow up on that. It is not coincidental, you tell us in the book, that 1928 and 2007 marked the two peaks of income concentration in America over the last 100 years, in which the richest 1% raked in more than 23% of total income. As I write this, you say, at the start of the 2015, a recovery of sorts is underway in the United States. Jobs are returning. But most people's wages are still not rising, and wealth and income are still at near record levels of concentration. The richest 400 Americans have more wealth than the bottom 50% of Americans put together. The wealthiest 1% own 42% of the nation's private assets. And the share of wealth held by the lower half of households has fallen from 3% in 1989 to 1% today. In your view, if this trend were to continue, what threat would it pose to capitalism in general?
Well, it's not sustainable. In narrow economic terms, if the vast middle class doesn't have enough income, they don't have enough purchasing power to keep the economy going. You know, people at the top don't spend all their income. They can't possibly spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year or $1 billion of wealth. They save it, and their savings go around the world to wherever they can get the highest return. So you have to have a certain degree of inclusiveness, a certain degree of not necessarily numerical equality, but a widened circle of prosperity just to keep an economy going. But I also don't believe it's sustainable politically and morally. I think people are already catching on to the fact that the American system is rigged. They're getting angry. This brings back the Trump and Sanders phenomenon. The choice ahead may be either, and it may not be in 2016, Steve, it could be 2020 or 2024, either authoritarianism or fundamental basic reform like we saw in the progressive era.
This is the one thing I don't understand about your country. If it were going to if the revolution were going to happen, surely 2008 would have been the best reason to have it happen. After the robber barons, after Wall Street did what it did to Main Street, and nobody went to jail, and nothing happened. Nobody went to jail. If it didn't happen then, what makes you think it's going to happen going forward?
Because I think that the seeds of what we're now seeing with Trump and Sanders were actually planted in 2008. That Tea Party movement, the Occupy movement, the anger and crony capitalist assumptions that most people have about the game being rigged really began then with the bailout of Wall Street. And it's not going away. It's growing.
Okay, tell me this then. 8 years Bill Clinton was president of the United States. Everybody thought part of his genius was that he really empathized with the little guy in the country. And now you've had almost 8 years of Barack Obama, another Democrat, in the administration. And you were a part of earlier administrations as well. Nothing's changed. How come? 16 years of Democratic presidents and nothing's changed.
Well, in order for things to change, you've got to get an mobilized and energized and organized citizenry. I mean, as Franklin D. Roosevelt said in 1936, I don't remember this directly, but I've read about it, when somebody said, Mr. President, if you are reelected and you want me to reelect you, I want you to do this, 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 and this. And he turned to her and he said, ma'am, if I'm reelected, you must make me do those. What did he mean? It means what I've learned, and I've learned it painfully, Steve, my years in Washington. And nothing good happens in Washington, even if you've got good people running the government, unless good people outside Washington are pushing and organized and mobilized to try to make it happen. Because the organized interests, the private interests, the moneyed interests are getting more and more and more organized all the time. So that countervailing power has got to be there. If you're a politician in Washington and you want to do the right thing, as Barack Obama, I'm sure did, as I know that Bill Clinton did at least most of the time, your hands are tied.
Time and again, you write, we have saved capitalism from its own excesses. I am confident we will do so again. Okay, who's going to lead that effort?
It may be already underway with Bernie Sanders. Now, I don't know. I know that I come across a lot of young people who, as recently as a year ago, said to me, we're cynical, we don't want to do any, don't want to get near politics, and they're starting to get excited about Bernie Sanders.
You find that strange?
I find it interesting.
It is interesting.
Because he's a 73, I would not have thought that their icon would be a 73-year-old Jew from Vermont. I mean, it doesn't fit.
Never brushes his hair.
It doesn't fit the standard. But I don't want to talk about Bernie Sanders per se, but I think it's important to understand that something is happening south of the border. This is not politics as usual. And even if it doesn't result in something sort of startling happen in 2016, it is building. This is a direct linear descendant from the bailout of Wall Street that you referred to a moment ago.
I'm going to push back a bit on this because I remember, not the last time you were here, but a couple of times ago, we talked about the fact that you pushed back against a long-standing friendship in Hillary Clinton and backed Barack Obama. And I remember you telling me, this guy reminds me of Bobby Kennedy, and I think he's the real deal. And now here we are, whatever it is, 3/4 of the way through his presidency, and I have the feeling, just reading your book, I have the feeling your heart's been a little bit broken by this guy. He didn't turn out to be what you hoped.
I'm too old and too seasoned to have my heart broken by any politician. I think that his heart is very much in the right place. But as I said before, I would emphasize this. He was up against huge odds. a Republican Congress that was better organized than I've ever seen them, more recalcitrant than I've ever seen them, a lot of money coming in from billionaires, a Republican Party well-financed, Wall Street that had turned against the Democrats and are now funding Republicans. So it's very difficult under these circumstances without a public that is behind him, again, organized and mobilized, for a president even as good as Barack Obama to make a lot of headway. He did make some headway. I mean, the Affordable Care Act, known colloquially as Obamacare, is an advance. From the Canadian perspective, it may not look like much, but it is, believe me, a very big change and a reform over what we had before.
You live in California, yes?
Yep.
Do you vote in the California Democratic presidential primary?
Yes.
Will you tell us who you intend to vote for?
No.
But you will vote?
Of course, I always vote. I mean, I don't think I've missed a vote. I mean, voting, look, we all have an obligation to vote. We have an obligation to pay our taxes. We have an obligation for jury duty. But beyond that, we all also have an obligation to be politically engaged, politically educated. If we don't like what's happening, it's not their fault, the politicians, it's our fault. And I'm sure that's true in Canada as well as in the United States.
In our last minute, I want to ask you about a Canadian that you dedicated this book to, John Kenneth Galbraith. How come?
He was my mentor at Harvard, a very dear, close friend. I'm not even 5 feet tall. He was about 6'7". People would laugh at us as we walked down the street.
I'm imagining the two of you in the same shot. Yes, indeed.
But he understood, although he was an economist, he understood that you can't separate politics from economics. He understood that you really needed to look at economic history and the structure of an economy. He was a brilliant and insightful man. It taught me a great deal.
We are delighted to have you in the studio as opposed to on satellite this time. We hope you'll visit us again next time you're back in Canada. The name of the book is Saving Capitalism for the Many, Not the Few. Robert Reich, great to have you here at TVO tonight.
Well, thank you, Steve. Great to be here.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.